Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Yud in Baba Basra. Yesterday we got down to the two dots right after, well, let's say it's before the lines get wide, a couple lines before the lines get wide. Rav Shapiro, Rav Shalom. Shem Shemar Zonos Shalom Ketsuvim Lo Mirosh Hashana. I'm not sure if I said we're learning again for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Sunnah Mitzvah Shivya. That goes without saying. The Rav Shapiro, Rav Shalom Shem Shemar Zonos Shalom Ketsuvim Lo Rosh. Just like a man's sustenance, his supplies are set from Rosh Hashanah. The same thing, his losses, in other words, what he's going to gain during the course of the year is set at Rosh Hashanah. The same thing, his losses are also so set. Zacha, if he merits, if he's deserving, then he will be able to distribute his bread to the poor. Lo zacha, he doesn't merit, he will bring the evil government, as we said, and even refers to the evil government, will come to his house. They don't say we'll tax him. Kiha, the Bnei Asay, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, a story with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's nephews. He saw in a dream, the he saw that they were going to lose 1,700 dinners that year. Rashi says he saw it in a dream on Matzah Yom Kippur. Some of the gear says Matzah Rosh Hashanah. A whole discussion about that was it said, that if they saw it was on Yom Kippur, that means they were already zocha to life. But whatever, whole discussion about whether it was. But anyway, at the beginning, after the beginning of the year, after Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, he saw in a dream they were going to lose $1,700. So he forced them, he took the money from them, forced me. He says, "Listen, give me your money. I need some money from you, and I want to put it in the tzedakah." So he took from them some money. He left out of the $1,700, right? Shvameya dinri, right? So it's $700. Not I said 17. It looks like shvameya. Let's say $700, and he left $17 there with them. In other words, he saw that they were gonna have some sort of a business loss of 700. So he took from them that amount of money, left 17. When Yom Kippur came around, so again, according to, if you learn that the gear says like Rashi, the way the Bas gives in Rashi, took on Rosh Hashanah, came to Erev Yom Kippur already, the government came and they took away that 17 that was left with them. Don't be afraid they're going to take any more, because Shifsar Dinre Gavaifu Sheklina, they only took the last 17 that was left with you, meaning that's all that they're going to take. They were going to take 700, but I forced you to give most of that to tzedakah, and whatever remained is what they took. I'm really, how do you know? They said to him, how do you know that that's all that they're going to take? They took 17, maybe they're going to come back for more. I saw in a dream. That you were going to lose it, so I said, I'll give it to tzedakah instead. That's how you lose it. In other words, it's like we said before, either give it to tzedakah or the government's going to take it, which is a reason why many people give tzedakah, right? Because it's going to go to the government anyway, so you might as well take it. It's a deduction, so they do it that way. They're going to lose it anyway, so they give it to tzedakah. So that's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai really did on their behalf. Amalei, they told him, so my Lamitlan, why didn't you tell us in a minute? We would have given it all to tzedakah. Why didn't you tell us? He told them, I figured, when did you do mitzvah shva? I said, listen, I need some money for tzedakah. If I would have told you, give it to tzedakah because the government's going to take it anyway, so you would have given it, just like the reason why rich people in different countries give tzedakah, because it's a tax deduction. If they don't give it to tzedakah, they'll have to give it to the government. So that's not so lishma. I wanted you to give it lishma. I said, listen, I need money for tzedakah, so I wanted you to do the mitzvah. For you, it was lishma. But Papa Bisola, the darga of Papa was climbing up on a ladder. Ishtamit kare, his leg tripped, and he almost fell off the ladder and was killed. Almost killed. Omar, he said, Hashta, chas v'chali, had he fallen, Hashta Cain, had he fallen and died, Echayev man the sanilan, the one who hates me, meaning he was talking about himself. He just used the lashon saginor on somebody else. He said, I would mechayev kamal chalei Shabbos v'avi kachavim. I understand, because the rule is Chal Shabbos and Avi Kachavim, their punishment is skila. One of the things of skila is that he's thrown off from let's say from a second floor platform, and therefore Today we say today when these misas are not handed out because there's no Bezdin, etc., there's no Sanhedrin, so they die. People who are chayav for Machal Shabbos they die a similar kind of a death. They fall off a roof, or they're eaten alive. It's similar to skila, the same kind of pain as skila. So he says, listen, if he'd have fallen down from a ladder, meaning fallen down a couple of stories and gotten killed, it's like I was almost warned. I would have been chayiv misa like Chal Shabbos of Gechavim, the same kind of a misa like skila. Amalei, is that possible? Am I so bad? Amalei Chia Rav difficult problem. So he said to him, Shema ani bali. So maybe a poor person came to you for support. So you didn't support him. The time of Shupin Kach Omer, call him malam einam at stuck. If you hide yourself from stuck, if you refrain from giving stuck when you should, kilo of it. It's like you worship Vodazar. So maybe that's why you were almost chayav aros kachavim. Hashem sort of warned you. How do we know that? What does refraining from doing tzedakah have to do from giving tzedakah to do with aros kachavim? It says when it comes to a person who looks away and doesn't want to give tzedakah, be careful lest something be with your heart, like without a yoke. As you have some sin, if you don't give tzedakah, when it comes to Avodah Zarah, it says people who do it Avodah Zarah, they're called bli'al. So the same lashon of bli'al, which is like bli'ol, without a yoke of mitzvahs on them, we see it referred to both Avodah Zarah and to refraining from doing tzedakah. Malahan was come just like there's Afkan is also come. Tanya, Amar Blazer, Rav Yossi, called tzedakah v'chesed she'Yisrael osim b'onus. Any good deed that they do in this world, tzedakah v'chesed, whether it's charity or good deeds, so shalom gadol, that creates great peace, upraklitim gedolim, and great advocates, meaning the malachei asharos l'machnes ben Yisrael l'bin shebashamayim. Right? It makes good things. How do we know? We know from the reverse. Shenemar, the pasuk says, Yirmiyahu admonished the people, Komar Hashem, Al tavo beis merazeh, don't come to the house of mourning for all these troubles that are going to befall you. Hashem had told Yirmiyahu that he's going to destroy that city on ourselves. And don't go to eulogize. Don't moan for them. I have gathered in my peace that I had with these people. What was that peace based on? As a chesed, as a rachmim, for the kindness and mercy that I've shown them. Chesed chasadim, that's doing acts of kindness. Rachmim zu tzedakah, right? Here the mercy refers to tzedakah. And what do we mean by that? What does it mean? Hashem, he's telling them, don't cry for them, don't moan these people, because I've gathered in all the goodness that I've given them. And what's that pasuk say? This is in Yirmiyah. So Rashi explains the pasuk. He's like this: He says, when Avram, our father, did righteousness and judgment, I gave them kindness and mercy and tzedakah, and Hashem guarded them. Once they stopped doing that, I've gathered in my kindness and my mercy, my goodness to them. In other words, it's the idea that when Bnei Yisrael does chesed, that makes a peace with Hashem. But when they stop doing that, then Hashem gathered in the peace treaty that He had with them. Great is charity. School brings the redemption. So says Hashem. Shimu mishpat. Guard judgment, and do acts of kindness. Because my salvation is near to come. And my tzedakah, my righteousness will be revealed. As to say, if you do tzedakah, then the gula will come. There are things that he said. There were 10 very hard things, like things hard meaning that they are impregnable in the world. 10 hard things were made. Har, the mountain, Kosha is very strong, a mountain like the Rocky Mountain. Barza machatcho, but if you have iron can cut and cleave the mountain. Barza Kosha, okay, so iron is hard, but urmafapo, but if you have a fire, the fire softens it. Ur Kosha, fire is hard. Mayim machavnosa, but water quenches it. Mayim Koshim, water can be very strong. Avim so glumoso, even clouds can bear the water of the in the sky. Sun. Oven kashim, clouds can be hard can have strength. Ruach mufasan, but a wind can scatter it. Ruach kasha, the wind can be strong. Guf sablo, it's in a person's body, right? There's wind inside a person. Even the guf, the body, can bear it. Guf kasha, the body of a person is strong, right? Pachat shovro, but it could be crushed by fear. Person's afraid, his whole body falls apart, gets sick. Pachat kasha, fear is very strong. Yain mafigo, yain, wine banishes the fear. Drink enough, you forget about everything, right? Yain kasha, wine can be very strong. Shina mafachso, and sleeping it off, works it off. You can work it off by sleeping. So sleeping can get rid of wine. In other words, all these things, one is stronger, but you see at the end, sleep gets rid of all these other things, one going up the ladder. Umisa kasha, some of the gifts mikulam or misa's kasha mishina, death is stronger than sleep, right? It's hard to wake up from death, but tzedakah matzelis min misa, but tzedakah saves one from death. To save tzedakah tatzal mimavis. Tzedakah will save you from death. Darshab destroyed Rav Yanai. See how the measure of God is not like that of a human being. Adam maybe person brings a big gift for the king. So the king may accept the gift, may not. Even if he accepts the gift, he may not be granted an audience with the king. If you give a penny to a poor person, you merit him. You merit to receive the holy countenance of Shnemer. When you do tzedek, when you do righteousness, meaning also charity, I will see your face. When I wake up, I will satiate. I will be satiated with your picture, with looking at you. We'll see what that means in a second. Blazer, whenever we give a pruta to a poor person, then he would daven like we do. We give money first, and then we daven. Amar, he said, I need tzedek. Right? The Darshan said that way. Not that Hashem said that, but that a person, when I give tzedakah, I will see God, I will look at God. My esba what's another interpretation of I will be satiated when waking up, I will be satiated with your countenance, your picture. That they fight off sleep in this world. And Hashem will satisfy them from the holy shining of the Hashem's countenance in the next world. According to this, it means Ezba, I will satiate your Tmuna Bahakis when you wake up in the next world. In other words, you fight off sleep in this world so you're awake all the time. You're learning all the time. Hashem satiates you in the next world. Amar the pasuk says, Malva Hashem chonedal, a person who's chonedal, a person who is gracious to the poor. Malva Hashem, it's like he lends money to God. Il mole mikra if the pasuk wouldn't have said it, Ef Shalom. If Shlomo Melech wouldn't have said that in Mishlei, you couldn't say that. It's as if Eved Lova Ish Malva. In other words, like you're lending money to God, and we know that a person who borrows money is like a slave, a servant to the Malva. If you give money to the poor, it's like you lent money to God, and God owes you the money. Rabbi Yochanan asks the Kasha. He says, Rabbi Yochanan asks the Kasha, says, Lo yo'il hon biyom ever. On the day of wrath, all your assets will not help you. Utstaka tatzim mavis. That's one pasuk in Mishlei, right? It's like the pasuk we quoted before. Charity will save people from death. That's a reason to give charity. It says, also in Mishlei, another parak, Lo yo'ilu otos resha. The treasures of the evil will not help. So it says another pasuk, in the same Mishlei, the same sefer, it says twice. That's what's the difference? What do you need two psukim for? Right? What do I mean? Two psukim telling me the same idea. One to save him from an unnatural death, one to save him from Gehenna in the next world. What's the one that saves you from Gehenna? Evra, the one that says Evra, the first pasuk that we quoted. Pasuk says, Lo yoil hon biyom Evra, your assets will not help you on the day of wrath, and that refers to Gehenna. The Sivit says Yom Evra Hayomu. That day of Gehenna will be a day of wrath. So when it says wrath, Evra, that refers to Gehenna. So it says Staka will save you from that wrath. And which is the other pasuk? Obviously, it's the remaining pasuk that saves you from Misa Mishana, from an unnatural or horrible death. Nosa, when you give tzedakah, again, both cases that tzedakah saves you. One case it saves you from Gehenna, one case it saves you from Misa Mishana. What kind of tzedakah saves you from the answers aren't exactly congruous, because one says tzedakah will save you from Gehenna, and then it says tzedakah will save you also from Misa Mishana. But when he says which one, what are we speaking about? We're talking about a kind of tzedakah. No staveni domas, like we said yesterday. What is the greatest tzedakah? When you give it, you don't know who you're giving it to. Note that and the person who takes it tzedakah, and they mean to tell us when it's a double blind test. Double blind. The giver, both the donor and the recipient, do not know the other party. No staveni domas. When you do that, when you give yeranos lapuke, but a marukva. This excludes from marukva, meaning because marukva, it says Marukva knew who he gave it to. Rashi brings down, what was the story with Marukva? He used to give the poor people in his neighborhood, every day he would put some money in a little pipe next to their door. So the ani didn't know who it came from, but he knew who he gave it to. So Marukva, right, we said, again, the first, when you give it and you don't know who you gave it to, that excludes Marukva, because Marukva knew who he gave it to. The recipient didn't know. What's the one who takes it and doesn't know who he took it from? Lapukin Rav Abba. That excuse from Rav Abba, because Rav Abba, they knew who he took it from. Rav Abba had a custom, he would take the money and throw it over his back, like on a stick, on a sack. So the aniyim would come and take it. So they knew who they took it from. He didn't know who took it. So but that wasn't the double blind. Rav Ukva knew who he gave it to. Rav Abba didn't know who he gave it to, but the other party did know. So we're saying the best way is that neither knows. So how should you give it? In other words, if you can't give it to somebody, because then you're going to know who you gave it to, and it's not enough to put it on your back, because then they will know who they took it from. What's the proper way to give tzedakah? Right? Lace of Lana, you put it in the tzedakah box. That's also true. That's also tzedakah. Charity does not necessarily just mean giving him cash. That's a chesed. We describe what's in tzedakah. Tzedakah basically is giving him money in one form or another. Chesed is doing a kindness, and the difference is that kindness could also be with your body. Tzedakah is with your assets, your money, and chesed could be. Chesed is really all inclusive. Bikur cholim is chesed, right? Levayas ames is chesed. Chesed shel emes. What's chesed shel emes? Doing an act of kindness to a dead person because he can't repay you. Sometimes you do an act of kindness and you're expecting something in return. Chesed shel emes is what's called. That was the cemetery in St. Louis was called the Chesed shel emes. They had a shul also associated with it. When we were kids, we used to say the shul is called Chesed shel emes because most of the people there had one foot in the grave. That's what it was. That was so we used to make fun of as kids. But that's Chesed shel emes. But you're right that giving somebody a job, putting him on his feet, giving him confidence is a tremendous act of chesed. It's chesed and tzedakah all in one. It's even better than giving him cash. Right? What's the line? Teach somebody how to fish, and you give him a living. Give somebody a piece of fish. It's you're giving him a meal. Teach somebody how to fish. You're giving him a living. Same idea. Right. Yeah. That's right. That's what you say. Giving somebody a job. Right. Exactly. As long as it's not family. Meisvei. What do you mean? So he said the best kind of tzedakah is put money in a tzedakah box. Sounds like just put it in there. Meisvei. What should a person do in order to have male children to be zocher to that? Rabbi Lezer Omer, scatter your money, give it to the poor. Rabbi Shua Omer, yismach ishto bar mitzvah. Make your wife happy when you're going to be intimate with her. Make her first happy. Put her in a good mood. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Omer, lo yiten adam pruto la'arnaka shosaka elam kem amunalav. Don't put any money into the tzedakah box unless the person in charge is as trustworthy as Reb Chananya ben. Doesn't mean he's a tzaddik as Reb Chananya ben Tradon, but he's as trustworthy as that. So what do you see? You shouldn't just put money into the stock box. You say put money in the stock box. You don't know who it's going to. They don't know who it's coming from. Not enough to that. And so it even sounds like you shouldn't just put money into the stock box. It says, no, keep coming in the money. We mean we can put it into a trustworthy stock box. That it's going to go to a good worthy people. And it's going to be handled by a trustworthy person, and he will give it to the poor. How will the horn of Israel rise? How will we achieve greatness? What does it say? When you count the Jewish people, everybody give a half a shekel, right? Give money and be counted that way. And the same way, how should people? How will we achieve greatness? By giving stock and buses Roshan by kofel stock, give a ransom for stock. In other words, you want to achieve greatness, give charity. And we are indeed a charitable people. Didn't they just say they went to America and raised $100 million for the yeshivas? Some say that's charity. Amravu, Shalu Eshlomo ben David. They asked Shlomo Melech, how great is stock? How great is the power of stock? Amrlan, Suru Makirish David. Look what my father David Melech said. He said in Tillim, Pizar Nasim Abyonim. He scattered his money, gave it to the poverty stricken. Sitkoso Omedes La'ad. His righteousness will endure forever. Karno Tara B'Kavod. His horn will rise up in honor. That's the great. You want to know? They asked David how great is it? Tzedakah. That's what tzedakah will do. It will stay forever. It will raise our character. Listen to this pasuk. It's a pasuk in Yeshaya. Hu meromim yishkom. He will dwell on high. Who? Mitzados Sloam Miskovo. His defense will be a rocky fortress. In other words, if you give tzedakah, hu meromim yishkom, he will dwell on high, and his fortress will be like a rocky. His defense will be a rocky fortress. Lachmo nasan meim. Lachmo, how is that? Lachmo eaten. His bread is given. Meim of nemanim. His water is trustworthy, meaning it's sure that it's going to happen. What does that mean? Ma tam roma mishkon. Why is the reason why he will dwell on high, and Mitzad Islam, a rocky fortress, Miskavo will be his defense. Mishum delachmo nasan, because he gave his bread away. Umeim of nemanim, and his water is trustworthy. Meaning, because he dispersed his food, therefore he rose up high, and his defense was a rocky fortress. He was strong. And that's the same idea that stucco will bring you up on high. They asked Shlomo Melech, Ezo ben Olamaba, who is a person who's royal to get in the next world? Amalam, Kol Sheganeket's Cain of Kavod. In other words, anybody who's given honor because of his chachma. That's what Rashi says. Oshim Shechokim Kavod, but Olam Hazeh, because of their chachma. A person who's given kavod, he's a ben Olamaba. He had the Yosef, or the Rav Yosef, Rav Yosef, the famous story of Yosef, Rav Yeshua, Cholash, he got sick. Ingrid, he fell into a trance. He was like dying. And then he recovered. Amalei Abu, his father said, my cousins, what did you see when you were in that trance? In other words, you ever these stories, in the old stories, Reader's Digest, somebody was dead and they were thought to be dead and they came back and they described what they saw. That's what happened over here. He was in a trance, in a death trance, but he survived and he came back and they said, what do you see there? Amalei Olam Hafach, I saw an upside down world. El Yonam Lamata, the people who were rich in this world were on the bottom. The Tachtana, the people who were poor in this world, are on top. Amalei Olam Bari, so you saw a clear world. That's the way it should be. How do we, the rabbis, how do we look there? Just like we are honored here, so we are considered there. In other words, with the same way we are appraised or held in this world, that's how we're held in this world. Vishamati, and I heard Shayom, this is what they used to say. Ashrei mi shabal lekam v'tamud biyado. Happy is the person who came here with his learning. With his learning. What does that mean, with his learning? So there's different terms. Some say, whatever you learned is in your head. I told you the story of a gifter that when he was old and sick, he forgot his learning, but he went to a Goyish professor at Case Western, and they told him that it's all in there. You can't retrieve it. Like the lock isn't there. But in Olam Haba, all his Torah will be there. Whatever's in our minds, whatever we learn. So some say, if you go to Al Peh, but in Chanal says, whatever you learned Al Peh, you take it with this world. Some say that it means his ma'asim, whatever you put into action, Shekai Mashallah, that's like Ashrei Misha Balach. Marsha says, we've said this before when we learned Subas, that the Iker Halimut, Shanasa Baroshin, that made an impression is you Halimut Abam Ksevas Yad. It's very important to write down things. I try to write down things, and now I have it on the computer, write down important things, like this saying, Ashrei Misha Sheba V'Talmudo B'Yado, Ashrei Misha Lakan, whoever came here to the next world with your learning, meaning if you learn every day, it's in your head, you act it out, or you write things down. That's his Shanasa B'Yado. That's how Kiikar Alima, she says, Shanasa Barosha, Aliba Haba Miksivas Yad. That's what he means. Ashrei Misha Balakan, V'Talmudo B'Yado, in his hand. He wrote it with his hands. Asher Alkein Nikra Chacham Sofrim. The Chacham were called Sofrim because they wrote it down. They wrote down the Mishnah and the Gemara. They wrote it all down. That's why they're called Sofrim. They wrote it. They were like a Sofer. So it's good to write things down, but also what's in your head is good, and your actions. Hashmi is the person who come here having learned. He had learned Torah. I heard they say Haruge Malchus, the ones killed by the king, by the evil king. Those karbanos, martyrs. Nobody could stand in their partition. They are the highest level, like our soldiers who were killed. They're on the highest level, defending Eretz Yisrael and killed by the Goyim. Manin, who are these ones? If you're going to say it's Rabbi Akiva, like somebody like that, Haruge Malchus, Bechaveir, and his colleagues, Mishum Haruge Malchus V'Sulo. You think that Rabbi Akiva is only Zocha to that high level because he was martyred and not because of his Torah, right? The Pshita Balafach is obvious, even without having been martyred, he would also be in such a great level because of his Torah that he spread 24,000 Talmidim, etc. Ela Haruge Lud. We're talking about the famous story of Haruge Lud. In Lud, there was a famous story with two guys, Lulinus and Papaz. They found the princess of the Goyim was killed, and they suspected the Jews, and they wanted to kill a lot of Jews. And these Lulinus and Papaz came forth and admitted that they had killed her, and they took responsibility. And therefore, since they saved the Jewish people by taking responsibility, they were also in that level. That's what it means by Haruge Malchus. They weren't learned, but they were Haruge Malchus. They would kill the He said to them, Banai, Ma'u Shamar Pasuk. Listen to this Pasuk because he's going to have various interpretations. Pasuk says in Mishlei, Staka Tromem Goy, righteousness or charity will raise up, will exalt a nation, Goy, the Chesed and kindness, le'umim chatas, will be for the nations a sin. What does that mean? So it's hard to explain this pasuk. So even the rabbis had different interpretations. And then Rav Lezer starts, remember, it's stuck at Rome, you know what there's El Yisrael, right? Who is a goy? Jews. It says Mikam Chesel Goy Echad Baretz. So stucco will exalt the Jews. Oh, that's the stucco will exalt a goy. That refers to the Jews. Mikam Chesel Goy Echad Baretz. Chesed Lumim Chatos. What does it mean? Called stucco, but Chesed Shumas Avikum. What the goyim do. Lumos mean here. Most of these rabbis are going to interpret Lumim as the goyim. They will. What the goyim, when the goyim do righteousness and kindness, charity and kindness. Shumas Avikum. Osin Cheton. It's really a sin. Shane most of they only do it to be strong, to act like big shots, to get the gaiva from that. Moshe Emert says, when Daniel told the king, you should be, you bring your karbanos as a reich nichoach, a pleasant karban shmai to God in heaven. But what do? You pray for the life of your own king, Ubenoi, and his family. Says Gemara. So that you're only doing it for your own greatness. So Gemara says, what do you mean? So what if they give stucca to God and they pray for their family? What's wrong with that? Is that stucca? By the time you learn almost sell a stucca, person says his son is Rahman sick in the hospital, and he gives it stucca, he gives sell stucca, so that his son should live. And he does that only for that purpose. He's a tzaddik omer, even if you have that other intention in mind. So what's wrong with if they had such intentions? Why? A Jew would give the tzedakah anyway. He says, I'm going to give the tzedakah for shalema, or if he'll get over above. But he would have given the money anyway, whereas the guy wouldn't have given the money only for his own benefit. So that's one interpretation of that pasuk. Then Rabbi Shiur then answered, again, they all say the first part, El Yisrael, that refers to the Jews will be exalted when they do tzedakah and chesed. The chesed leumim chatas, but the chesed that the goyim do will be a chatas. I mean, kotzak b'chesed she'umas. We're at the first of the widest lines in the page now. Kotzak b'chesed she'umas ha'olam osin. Any charity and kindness that the goyim do, right? Chaytu lahen. It's really a sin for them. She'enos nela kedei shetim shemachus, and they only do it so that their evil kingdom should endure. Shenemar lahen malka. But this is what Daniel told the king. Lahen malka, you king. Malcha yishaper lecha, things should be good for you. And your sins, redeem your sins by doing charity. And your iniquities by giving to the poor. Then your peace and tranquility should be at length when you give it tzedakah. So what do you see? He says they're only doing it, right, to atone for their terrible sins. The tzedakah b'chesed is only to get them out of their bind. Then another interpretation. So no, you're not saying it. We're going to say a chatas at the end. We're going to come out that it's korban chatas. He's saying it more like it's a sin for them. He says it's a sin. Most of these rabbis are using the word chatas as a sin, not as a chatas. Right. In a way, it is like it should be like chatas, but he says also it's a sin for them. Maybe he means chatas also, because at the end we will come out that he's referring to like it's like that there's one shot that says it's like a korban. Again, they all say the first part is the same. Again, it's a sin for them. They only do it to be arrogant by it. Whoever is arrogant falls against him. It says, Say Yahir, the person who's proud and haughty, let's Shemo, he's a scorner. Oseb, ever sudden he does it with the wrath of pride. They never will get him. Ever always, as we said on Alpha, first to get him, Shem Yom Evra Yomahu. So again, they're only doing it for sins. That's what he means, that it's doing it as a sin. He's not doing. You're right, Michael, that the shot that this will be an intervention, but really they're doing it because they're sinned. All their stuff is trying to atone for the sins, or it's the sin itself. When they're doing it, they're only doing it for sinful purposes. You're right. In the case of when he told the king, he was doing it, you should do it tzedakah to try to make up for it. So it's like a chatas. Yeah. Amar Mulil, Yom Abrayamu. Amar Mulil, Adayan, even Amar Mulil said, even though we've given these interpretations of Yeshua and who was the first one? Rabbi Lezer and the other ones, Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Gamliel. And now we still need the interpretation of Rabbi Lezer Hamadoi. He came from the mountain Hamadoi. Omer, stuck at Ramgoy, El Yisrael, you're right. The first part, they all agree. They all say that word basically, right? Yeah. It's all a sin for them, right? They're only doing it to reproach us, like to mock us. It says, by Nuvuzradin, who was the captain of the guard. Hashem, Kasher Diber, God, your God did what he said. You sinned to God. You didn't listen to his voice. And this is why it's happening to you. In other words, he did it like to say, look, we're better than you. Like, you're doing it because you guys are bad. So they're only doing it to be arrogant with us. Then another pshat, Omer, Staka Tromem Goy, Vechesed Yisrael. He interprets it differently. He says, not the chesed that the goyim do. He says, Staka Tromem Goy, Vechesed Yisrael. Ula chatas, and for the goyim it will be, I can say, like a sin offering. So now Rabbi Yochanan Zakai, who had asked all his Talmidim for their interpretations, Niran Divra B'Chim, this last interpretation is better than all of yours. Midivrai, better than my interpretation, and Midivrechem, and better than yours. I like B'Chim Mekan's best. Even though Rabbi Yochanan Zakai didn't give his interpretation yet, right? He asked his Talmidim. So they all gave their interpretation, but he liked Mechunya Yekara's best. Why? Because he showed us saying tzedakah v'chesed Yisrael. He puts both the tzedakah and the chesed. He doesn't say that the tzedakah is going to exalt the God, the Jews, and the chesed of the goyim is a chatas for them. It will be is a sin for them. He says no, that the tzedakah and the chesed both go on the Jews. That's why he said that's better. Jew knows in tzedakah v'chesed Yisrael. Well, akam chatas, and to the goy he gives a chatas, a sin, or they need a sin off. Mechlal dehu nam yomer. Mashma that Rabbi Yochanan Zakai all said what was Rabbi Yochanan Zakai's own interpretation of the pasuk that he now rejects in favor of that of Mechim Erkan? The Tanya Rabbi Yochanan Zakai Shem shechatas mechaper al Yisrael, kach tzedakah mechaper al Salah. Like is a chatas. He says like chatas, just like a chatas mechaper Yisrael. That tzedakah is mechaper for them. It's like a chatas for them. That's what he says. The ches lumim is like a chatas, like a korban chatas for them. That was Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai's interpretation, but he rejects that in favor of Nechudi ben Akana, who says that what? That he said that tzedakah tromim goy v'chesed Yisrael, and the umim, the goyim will have a sin. The goyim sin. The goyim need it. Maybe it means they need a kapara, right? But he says it's a sin for the goyim. Another story with Ifra Hormus. We had her back in the Ches. She was the mother of Shmor Malka. There she gave money and said, do a great mitzvah with it. We said that refers to Pidyon Shmuyim. Here's the story. Ibra Hormuz, Imad Shmor Malka, Shudder Arba Mesa, she sent $400 Lakami to Ramashim for Rami to disperse to the poor. But look, he didn't accept it from her. He didn't want her to do a mitzvah. Okay, so what did she do? Shadrinu Kamed Rav, she gave it for Rava, because when he accepted it. Mishum Shal Malchus, he didn't want to start a fight. If he wouldn't accept the gift from the queen mother, they could start a fight. They could take it out on the Jews. Shama Ravami heard that Rava had accepted it where he didn't. He was upset. Amar, Leslie, doesn't he hold the pasuk that says Yeshai v'yavish sira, when the branches will dry up, will wither, Tishavana, they'll be broken. Nashim bos miras osa, women will come and fire and burn them. What does that mean? Rashi says it means shetichlas chus shabiyad, when they'll have no more schus, v'yavish lachluchas, ma'aset tzedakah shaled, they'll be broken when they want to be tzedakah. So what are you helping them to do tzedakah? What are you helping them? You shouldn't help them. When you stop helping the goyim, then they will fall apart when they won't have any mitzvahs. But Rava Mishum Shalom Malchus, Rava did it because of Shalom Malchus. That's why he did it. So Rava Minam Mishum Shalom Malchus. Why wasn't he Shalom Malchus? He says the boy lay says what Rava should have done. You're right, there is Shalom Malchus here, but he shouldn't have given them a schus of dispersing money to the poor Jews. He should have given them to the Goyisha. He says, you should have given her money to the Goyisha poor, so she wouldn't have such a big stress of helping the Jewish poor. But Rav Taka gave it to the poor guy. He didn't give it to the poor Jews. Rav he was upset. They didn't tell him, as he thought that Rav thought that Rav dispersed it to the poor Jews, giving the queen mother a great schus, which will help their malchus endure. They wouldn't fall apart. And he said you should have given it to the goyim, which Taka Rav did. Tanya, he was in charge of the tzedakah box. From one time, a woman came to him. In the years of famine, when the tzedakah box was empty, they were down. They had no money. Rabbi Panaseni, please sustain me. I swear by the base of we got nothing left, nothing to give you. Rebbe, if you don't feed me, we're all going to die with her 7 kids. So he gave her from his own money. There was nothing money in the stock box, he gave something. Later on, this Rabbi Metzadik was very sick, but nothing was almost died. So the ministering angel said before God, Atamarta, you said, God, whoever preserves one soul among the Jews, it's as if he preserved an entire world. He preserved this woman and her 7 children. He should die. He preserved 8 people, and they will have children and great grandchildren, etc., etc. He should die at a young age in such a short time. Halalu, in these short years that he was alive, the Yad Korlog, when Hashem heard that, Korlog Zardino, his Zardino's decree was torn up, so to speak. It's brought down as if there's a discussion in heaven about this, as if Hashem couldn't have done himself. That's how we see the story, that there was a discussion, and therefore his Zardino's decree was torn up.
Who cares up to Zardin?
Yeah, Hashem did. Hashem. Yeah. Oh, Korla. Yeah. So they tore up his garden. They guess that the Malach HaMavos was given the decree, and then he goes and kills him. So they tore it up. Tano, they gave him 22 years. He was added 22 years after this dialogue. Tanaban. Ma'aseh says that Melch. There was the story of Munbas Melch. Munbas was a king. Rashi says he was the son of Heleni Amalka from the seed of the Hashmonaim. Shabizbaz Ososa. He dispersed all his treasure, and his those of his ancestors, in the years of famine, he dispersed it all to the poor. His family, his brothers, his whole family joined up and complained to him. Your ancestors, your fathers, the ancestors, saved up all this money. They added even more to the royal treasure. And now you are dispersing it and effectively throwing it away. My ancestors, they stored it down here in this world. I've stored it up above in heaven by dispersing it. The truth will grow from the ground. But the tzedek, the righteousness, will be looked down upon from heaven. In other words, heaven's going to, as I give it down here, as I disperse it down here, I'm building up my treasure up in heaven, in the next world. My ancestors stored it in a place where it can be stolen. I put it in a place where nobody can touch it. Where is the tzedek mishpat that I'm going to get? It's the foundation of your throne. It's up. My treasure is up there. In other words, I'm storing it up above in heaven. I've also gone to the Paris. My ancestors stored something that doesn't have any fruit. He doesn't earn interest with the gold and stuff sitting in the treasury. The gold doesn't earn any interest. I've stored away something that is perishable. Imu tzaddik kitov, say to the tzaddik that he is good. He will eat the fruits of his doings, meaning because he's eating the fruits in this world, but the keren stays for the next world. My ancestors stored storehouses of cash. I've put away souls. I've stored souls. The fruit of the tzaddik is a tree of life. And wise is the person who wins souls. In other words, I brought more people back to Torah and Yerushalayim, so I've effectively stored away souls. I've saved souls, not just cash. My ancestors stored it away for others, for their descendants. I've saved it for myself. I've stored away. The tzedakah will be for you. They stored it only in this world. I've stored it away in the next world. And your righteousness will go in front of you. The honor of God will gather you into the next world. The next world you'll have others. So one must answer them in a very good and proper way. All right, we'll stop here. And tomorrow's daf is Daf Yud Aleph, and that'll be on the podcast. On Shabbos is daf. And on Sunday, Rosh Chodesh, tomorrow's Rosh Chodesh, and Sunday's Rosh Chodesh, we'll pick it up on Daf Yud Beis on the 6th line, the beginning of the 6th line of Rabba Bar Barchana on the 6th line on Sunday morning. Mirza Shem Shabbat Shalom, the Chodesh Tov L'Kulam.